All right, let's dive into another deep dive. This time we're looking at a real classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
By Dale Carnegie.
Yeah, exactly. It was originally published way back in the 1930s.
Mhm.
But you know what? This book is still a huge bestseller today.
It's incredible.
So we're going to see what makes it so timeless.
Absolutely.
Now, for this deep dive, we're going straight to the source, the book itself.
Sounds good.
And one of the things that really jumps out right away is Carnegie's focus on, well, avoiding criticism.
Right.
Like, he argues it's almost always a bad idea,
Yeah, he makes a very strong case for that.
doesn't he?
He says criticism usually just puts people on the defensive.
Makes sense.
It hurts their pride,
Yeah,
makes them less likely to actually change.
right. And he uses a pretty striking story to illustrate this point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's about Two Gun Crowley,
Oh, wow.
this notorious criminal.
Right.
And even as he was dying, Crowley refused to admit he did anything wrong.
It's just amazing how even hardened criminals try to justify what they do. Yeah.
And if they can't take criticism, imagine how the average person reacts to it.
That's a good point.
Makes you really think about how to approach those difficult conversations.
Definitely.
So instead of criticizing, Carnegie recommends trying to understand the other person's perspective.
That's interesting.
Mm.
Now, Carnegie also talks about how Abraham Lincoln learned this lesson the hard way.
Ooh, tell me about it.
Yeah, so early in his career, Lincoln was known for being pretty sharp-tongued, and he had a tendency to criticize others,
Okay.
and it almost led to a duel.
Wow.
Yeah, he wrote a really scathing letter, and it almost cost him dearly.
Why?
It shows how damaging criticism can be.
Even when it comes from somebody with good intention.
Yeah, like Lincoln.
Right.
So the key takeaway here is that we need to be more aware of the impact of our words.
Absolutely.
Criticism rarely leads to positive change.
So true.
So if we're not supposed to criticize,
Right.
what does Carnegie suggest we do?
Well, he's a big believer in genuine appreciation.
He thinks people really crave recognition and feeling valued, and that offering sincere appreciation is way more effective than just flattering someone.
And he contrasts this with a pretty tragic story
Oh, really?
about a woman who was driven to insanity because she just desperately needed recognition.
That's heartbreaking.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a reminder of how important it is to feel valued and appreciated.
So true.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be some big grand gesture either.
No.
Carnegie uses this simple example of a grumpy postal worker
Yeah.
whose whole demeanor changed when somebody just complimented his hair.
Just like that.
Yeah. Shows how even those small acts of appreciation can make someone's day.
Absolutely.
It's all about recognizing the value in each person.
Yeah, and acknowledging their efforts.
Exactly. And this ties into Carnegie's belief that people are driven by emotion, not logic.
Oh, for sure.
That they're motivated by things like pride and vanity and that desire to feel important.
Makes sense.
Doesn't it?
It
And understanding this basic truth about human nature is so important if you want to build real connections and have a positive influence on people.
Absolutely.
So we've established that criticism is a no-go.
Yeah.
Genuine appreciation is key.
Mm.
But how do we actually get people to see things our way?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
It is. And Carnegie outlined some really practical techniques.
Yeah. What are some of them?
Well, one of the most effective is to make the other person really want what you're suggesting.
You mean like create a desire for it?
Exactly. He calls it arousing an eager want.
Okay.
And he tells this great story about Stan Novak,
Okay.
who's trying to convince his son to go to kindergarten.
Yeah.
And instead of forcing him or arguing,
Right.
Stan focused on all the fun things his son would get to do there.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
So it wasn't you have to go. It was look at all the fun you'll have.
exactly. And by highlighting what his son already wanted to, playing with other kids, trying new things, he made him excited about school.
That's brilliant.
Isn't it?
So instead of you have to do this, it's you get to do this.
Exactly.
I
And
know.
you can use this in so many different situations.
I bet.
From negotiating a business deal to getting your kids to clean their rooms.
Makes sense.
It's about understanding what motivates the other person and then framing things in a way that appeals to them.
Okay. So what's another technique?
Another crucial one is to try and see things from the other person's perspective, even if you don't agree with them.
That's tough sometimes.
It is. But Carnegie uses the example of a revised letter that was addressing a customer complaint.
Okay.
So instead of getting defensive and justifying the company's actions, the revised letter acknowledged that the customer was frustrated and offered a solution that worked for both of them.
That's smart.
It is. And it's a good reminder that taking the time to understand the other person's point of view can really help resolve conflict and build rapport.
Makes a lot of sense.
Carnegie also stresses how important it is to start conversations in a positive way.
Yeah, like set a good tone from the beginning.
Exactly. He calls it beginning in a friendly way.
I like that.
It makes people more open to hearing your ideas.
Right, because if you come in guns blazing,
Yeah.
nobody wants to listen to that.
It's so simple. But I know I'm guilty of just jumping right into the problem without taking the time to build that initial connection.
I think we all do it.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder for sure.
Now, building on that friendly approach,
What?
Carnegie talks about the power of getting the other person to say yes.
Oh, tell me more about that.
So he suggests asking questions that'll get them to agree
Okay.
and gradually steering the conversation towards the outcome you want.
So it's like guiding the conversation, but subtly.
Exactly. Like you're kind of steering the ship without them realizing it.
I see.
And finally, Carnegie emphasizes the importance of letting the other person do the talking.
That's a tough one.
It is.
But being a good listener is key.
Oh, for sure. It's one of the best ways to build rapport.
It shows respect.
And you learn so much.
And genuine interest in the other person.
It's so easy to get caught up in our own thoughts and just wait for our turn to talk.
Oh, totally.
And we forget to really listen.
That's the biggest trap.
Yeah.
But by just being a good listener,
Mm-hmm.
we can build stronger relationships,
Absolutely.
understand different perspectives,
Yes.
and just be more effective communicators overall.
So true. And all of these techniques are really about building genuine connections and understanding.
And it seems like encouragement plays a big role in that too.
Oh, absolutely.
Carnegie believes in using encouragement to help people improve rather than criticizing them.
Right.
It's all about highlighting the positive impact that praise can have.
Makes them feel good about themselves.
Yeah, and more motivated to keep going.
Exactly. And he shares some really inspiring stories
Yeah.
about people whose lives were completely changed because somebody encouraged them.
Wow.
Like Charles Dickens, H.G. Wells,
Amazing.
and even a bridge expert named Ely Culbertson.
I've never heard of him.
It just shows you how powerful a few words of praise and belief can be.
It's incredible.
Our words have so much power.
Yeah, you can build somebody up.
Or tear them down.
Exactly.
And Carnegie encourages us to be the ones who build people up.
I like that.
He believes that everyone has potential and that by offering praise and support, we can help them reach it.
Beautiful.
So he even talks about how a simple compliment about a grumpy postal worker's hair completely changed his attitude.
So simple, but so powerful.
It is, and it reminds me of that saying.
Oh, yeah.
Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle.
I love that.
We never know what others are going through.
That's so true.
And sometimes just a compliment or a word of encouragement can be all they need to keep going.
Absolutely.
Powerful stuff.
It is. Yeah, it's all about creating that positive and supportive environment, to help people be their best. And that kind of brings us to another big part of Carnegie's philosophy, making people feel important.
Yeah, he talks about that a lot.
He does. It's woven through all of his principles.
Like it's fundamental to his whole approach.
Exactly. Carnegie believes that everybody deep down wants to feel significant.
Like they matter.
Yeah, to know that they matter. And one of the simplest ways to do that, to make someone feel important, is to remember their name.
It's so true. He calls it the sweetest and most important sound to a person.
And I'm always impressed when someone remembers my name.
Me too, especially if it's been a while.
It makes you feel seen.
Like you matter.
Exactly. It shows that the other person was paying attention, that they cared enough to remember.
And Carnegie doesn't just tell us to remember names. He gives us tips on how to do it better.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, he suggests repeating the name a few times when you first meet someone.
Okay.
Or coming up with an association for the name.
That's smart.
Or even just jotting it down later.
Yeah, anything to help commit it to memory.
It's like you're making a conscious effort.
To show the other person that they're worth remembering. And that attention to detail, it applies to being a good listener, too.
Absolutely.
Carnegie really stresses that we need to actually listen to what the other person is saying.
Not just waiting for our turn to talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He actually tells this great story about how he convinced some